Inter Miami has its second win of the season, thanks to a big performance from one designated player, but another was dropped from the lineup. Hello everybody and welcome to the latest episode of Miami Total Football Radio. I'm Franco, Panizo, one half of this hosting team, and joining me, of course, is El Primo, Steve Brenner. Steve, how are you today on this Tuesday morning?
Very well, thank you. Hope you are too. So, enjoyed your birthday celebrations, just like I'm sure Phil Neville and the team enjoyed a brief celebration, I would have thought, after Sunday. And yeah, a good win. I think I didn't want to come back again and start talking about how they have to go into the next game, which is also on the road, needing a win. I just think it settles everything down, sets the week up nicely now for what's coming.
Yeah, it was a good win for them, a needed win for confidence. We'll touch on that. We'll touch on the upcoming match against the Chicago Fire. Another game that's fairly winnable for Inter Miami, even though they're going on the road. And we'll, of course, answer questions at the end of the pod. But as always, if you do not follow us on all our social media channels, please do so. And that is at Miami Total Futbol on YouTube and Facebook, and at MIA Total Futbol on Instagram and Twitter. We've started the giveaways. We've put up La Rosa Negra jersey from last year. That's up already on the Instagram. We're giving that away soon. And shortly after that will come the highly coveted pink shorts from last year, which I've actually gotten some background on. I actually found out why they wore pink shorts at the start of last year and then ultimately did not. I'll share that a little bit later on in the pod. But enough of all that, Steve. People want to listen to Miami Total Football Radio. You thought I would not say that? Come on, I always have to say that. All right, Steve, let's get to it. Okay, Steve, so Inter Miami picks up a 3-2 win against FC Cincinnati, the last place team in MLS. They only have 1 point on the year, and it came in a game in which FC Cincinnati opened its brand new stadium, a lovely new stadium, TQL Stadium, and Inter Miami wins this one by a 3-2 mark with 2 goals from Gonzalo Higuain and 1 from Brek Shea. The team got off to a good start in the first half, an improved performance from what we saw in last week's dreadful defeat to CF Montreal. Brek Shea scores early in the 7th minute, and then Gonzalo Higuain off of a back heel from his brother Federico, who started this match, in the 38th. So 2-0 lead for Inter Miami at halftime. FC Cincinnati gets back into it off of 2 goals that come largely from nothing. And the game's 2-2 late. It looked like Inter Miami was going to have to settle for a very disappointing draw, but Gonzalo Higuain comes up with the goods, finishes off a play inside the 18-yard box. Now, before we get into the performance and our thoughts on it, let's just quickly go over the lineup. Yeah, John McCarthy in goal. Victor Ulloa again as a makeshift right back. Ryan Shawcross at right center back. Leandro Gonzalez Pires, the captain, at left center back. Sammy Guediri got the surprise start at left back. This was his first MLS start. Gregori as the 6. Blaise Matuidi as the 8 on that first midfield line. Lewis Morgan on the right wing. Federico Higuain at the 10, ahead of Rodolfo Pizarro, who was dropped from this lineup. Brek Shea on the left wing, and Gonzalo Higuain at the striker position. So, Steve, what were your initial thoughts, or what were your main thoughts and takeaways from this game?
Well, I mean, we talked at length, about the lineup, and he had to make that change, didn't he? He had to take Pizarro out; it just wasn't functioning. Put Federico Higuain in because he does the job that Pizarro, I guess, should be doing. I know we've gone on and on about, oh no, he's not number 10 or whatever, but they just needed some link-up play. He provided that. And also, we talked about Brek Shea, and you actually did say that they didn't need an early goal, and they just needed to stay strong and just soak it all up. And then me, Nostradamus himself, predicting they go on the front foot. Phil Neville clearly listening to this podcast, changing probably agreeing, nodding with my assessment of what they should do because he was already going to do it anyway. And they got the early goal, and I just think that it settles the team down, and then on the flip side, it then it forces Cincinnati to come out and play. And yes, look, they came back into it, but I think it would have been they deserved all 3 points, I think. But just that little shaky period, which they're prone to doing, which we've seen so many times. But I think that in general, when we think about last season, how they struggled so badly at this point of the season, they only just got their first win. I think to have 2 wins, 2 defeats, draws, whatever at this point of the season, I think I think they would have taken that at the start.
Are you the secret puppet master behind this all? Are you the one pulling the strings and letting people know what to do here? Because you did say the key to the game was an early goal. Now, obviously,
it's not rocket science, is it? It's not. I'm not like reinventing the atom here or something. I mean,
well, no, but look, I mean, you said the key to the game would be an early goal. I mean, in the end, the early goal is not what changed the game for them. But hey, they got an early goal, so kudos to you on that. I thought it would be being solid defensively, which they were in the first half, not so much in the second half. Ultimately, what the game came down to was one of their designated players stepping up, like we have rarely seen through Inter Miami's short history so far. Gonzalo Higuain comes up with 2 goals, delivers the type of performance you're expecting or you would expect from a designated player, especially late after Inter Miami concedes. He finishes, puts the ball into the back of the net, and that's the type of performance that he's getting paid $5+ million for. That's the type of performance you would expect from him. So that was a good development for Inter Miami, a good development for Gonzalo Higuain, because not only had he been kind of hot and cold on the field dating back to last year, but he had been recently struggling emotionally. That's something that he and Phil Neville talked about after the game, was that he had been struggling emotionally after the recent loss of his and Federico Higuain's mother. So that had been weighing on him, but he had an honest conversation with Phil Neville after the Montreal game, just a heart-to-heart talk. That's something I wrote about for SBIsoccer.com in my post-game cider. And Phil Neville and Gonzalo spoke pretty candidly and openly about the whole situation. And Gonzalo promised Phil Neville he would score 2 goals in the next 3 games, which the first of which was against FC Cincinnati. So he's starting to make good on that promise anyway. He scores 2 goals, wins the game for Inter Miami. But before we touch on Gonzalo Higuain's performance a little bit more, let's listen to this quote from Phil Neville about Gonzalo's struggles and his grieving that has affected him in recent games.
Gonzalo, he's been suffering. If you've lost a parent, and I have, he's been suffering. I think you saw that in the last couple of games. It's easy to have a look. It's easy to criticise professional footballers for their performance on the field without understanding what is going on in their personal life, what's going on in their mental state. And when you lose someone as important as what the mother was to Gonzalo and Federico, you know, people handle it in different ways, and he's been emotionally struggling. His family's arrived in Miami today. That's given him a massive boost. And I spoke to him on Thursday and Friday about how to deal with losing a parent, you know, and you can as a manager, you've got to have these conversations. It's not about football. You've got to help a player.
Steve, after listening to that and then seeing the performance Gonzalo Higuain put forth, how much credit does Phil Neville get for managing the situation, managing the moment, and getting more out of Gonzalo Higuain in this game?
Yeah, I mean, it's man management, isn't it? That's what you have to do. It's not just sometimes about what happens with a soccer ball at your feet. It's how you deal with personalities. Being a manager of McDonald's or being a manager of Inter Miami, you've got to manage people, and it's an emotional time. Phil Neville's father died of a heart attack, if I remember correctly, a few years ago, very, very suddenly. So he talks about how he knows what it's like. So there's a humane sort of element to it. I think that's what you do, isn't it? You put your arm around people, you try and help them come through what is obviously very, very difficult time for them. And thankfully, he managed to get the right response out of him, and both Higuains seem to have not put it to the back of their mind, but they've just moved forward and just tried to cope as best they can. Of course, it's a very difficult time. The pain will still be there, but just a nice sort of glimpse there of the man management. Phil Neville saying, he lost a parent as well. He knows how it feels, and you can imagine their sort of heart to hearts would have been quite emotional. So I think that all built up to the fact when then both Higuains played really well. Phil Neville obviously struck a chord with them both.
Yeah, look, to me, I've criticized Phil in certain moments when I've thought he deserved criticism. And this one, great man management from him in order to not only help the player, but help the person. And obviously, I think, look, and I don't think I've said this, but I think just off of initial early interactions, I think Phil Neville is a way more personable type of coach, more of a player's coach than maybe Diego Alonso was. Again, last year was very different because of everything that was going on. But just from our interactions with Diego Alonso over Zoom, seemed a little bit more of a serious type. Maybe not as personable. Maybe just not as personable. Didn't seem as, the type of guy. We've seen Phil not only in videos with the team and the players, but even when we're on Zoom calls with him, he banters about a little bit, makes his jokes. He definitely likes to tease at times, but it's all in good nature. So I think he has that quality that can rub off on players. That he can put their arms or his arm around their shoulders and tell them, hey, look, we need this to be better, or hey, look, let's talk about whatever's going on. So I think that was a good move from him, or a good situation from him.
Absolutely, yeah. And his brother Gary was known as sort of Red Nev. He was like he was the real sort of leader of the pack at United. Not leader of the pack, but he's always very outspoken. You can imagine the change room being a very, very sort of, forceful, force of nature kind of character. And that although Phil Neville's not that kind of character, I don't think he's slightly different to his brother. They're brothers, so that would have rubbed off on him, and I think that you're seeing just that sort of nurturing element of it, and being a leader and being compassionate and dealing with situations in the right way and not being scared and coming out and actually talking about things. I think that's a good thing moving forward.
Yeah, for sure, because again, it wasn't just the goals. I think for me, from where I'm sitting or where I was sitting, it wasn't just the goals. I saw more effort and a more engaged Gonzalo Higuain. But I don't know if that was just the conversation or if that's just also a tactical byproduct of his brother Federico being on there and trusting that there's a 10 in there that can maybe play through balls in behind the defense or that can look to combine. And, it could be a number of things. But speaking of Federico, and we'll touch on him in a little bit, but he was part of the build-out on the second goal that leads to Gonzalo Higuain's first goal from the run of play in MLS. And that build-out is something I asked Phil Neville about, because in the game I saw, obviously, the two center backs, Ryan Shawcross and Leandro Gonzalez Pires, split often in the goal when John McCarthy was taking a goal kick or when he was trying to distribute to start up sequences. And Blaise Matuidi would drop in centrally, pretty deep, to try to pick up the ball. And we saw that from practically the first or second minute of the game when they had a goal kick. This is what Phil Neville said after the game when I asked him about his tactical approach to the game against FC Cincinnati.
We didn't change much in that centre midfield, but the one thing that we did change was the fact that we wanted the team to play the ball into midfield more, to play central more, to trust Blaise, to trust Gregory on the ball, two really good players. So for the last 3 days, I said to him about, you have to play the ball. I don't care if there's somebody up there backsizing, they're marked. I want to trust us playing the ball centrally rather than play the ball wide. They were really, they wanted to press us wide and not through the middle. So I wanted us to play through the middle in central areas. And that's where I thought, Gregory and Blaise at times in the first half really caused them problems. Blaise demanding the ball off his teammates was what I expect from a player of his quality. And that's what he gave us.
But Emo, when you hear that from Phil Neville, that tactical switch, and then you see it on the field, what did you think? Did you think it worked out? Because I thought it did. I thought it helped Inter Miami find a better rhythm, got players more touches, whereas maybe when they're being direct and they're not able to hold on to the ball as well as they did in this one, then players start to make sloppy passes or errant passes because they just haven't gotten their rhythm into the match or they haven't found their touches yet. So I think this was a way for players to get their touches. I think it was a way for Matuidi to have a bigger influence on the game. I thought he was better in terms of making passes. Still had a few too many sloppy passes for my money, and he still looked a little bit frail defensively, but improved performance from him. I thought Gregori was incredible in this one. I thought he was right up there, right after Gonzalo Higuain in terms of man of the match candidates. You know, if you had a podium for gold, silver, and bronze, I think he would ended up silver with Breck Shea maybe as the bronze. But just what'd you think? What'd you think of the desire to build out and the emphasis to build out?
Yeah, that's what it's all about, though, isn't it? It's just trying to keep possession. You know, just to sucker the other team in, and then once you start losing the ball, especially when it's more humid and hotter, it's gonna tax the players so much, and they're just gonna be exhausted. So you've got to try and keep possession, to keep wearing the team down. You know, and I think that midfield two looked much more solid. I think Breck Shea does give them a more athletic option down one of the flanks, and you know, Lewis Morgan now has coming into a little bit of form. It's the kind of form that we saw week in, week out last season, and I think that helps. So if you've got all facets of the team working well in tandem, even for the winning goal, that's what we keep talking about. Is that Higuain, if he's in the box, he's going to score. You just got to get the ball to him, and he started to move, and Lewis Morgan set him up, and that was it. So it was a performance where everything just seemed to work much better and a more cohesive unit, which they have kind of lacked in those games where they've sort of underperformed, and yet the games they have played well in, you've kind of seen that. So they're gradually getting into it. Or at least we're still 6 games in. It's still pretty early, and they've pretty only played 6 times together if you discount the couple of USL games before the start of the season. So it's a gradual thing. And I think if we listen to all these podcasts at the end of the season, and then we will see that we just did predict exactly what would happen, that the first few games would be difficult because of the lack of fitness, players coming back, etc., and now it's kind of building up to where they know where they're at and what positions are key and all that kind of stuff, but they've got to keep it going.
So I'm going to ask you this, and I'm going to preface it with this: you can only play the team that's in front of you, right? Okay, understood.
Here we go. It doesn't count.
No. It does count. No, it does count. It counts. Of course, it counts. But how much of the factor that they were able to build out and play do you attribute to them playing Cincinnati? That's the worst team in MLS, team that has notorious defensive issues, and they've been a punching bag for the last 3 years or 2 years and change. Since their entry into MLS, they haven't been very good. So how much do you attribute to it being Cincinnati, and how much do you attribute it to being Inter Miami just being better with the ball? Because, yes, they were better with the ball, but they're also playing a team that's not great. So can Inter Miami do this? Will Phil Neville say, hey, I want to play through to Blaise Matuidi, even if he has pressure on his back against better teams? Is he going to take that risk, or is he going to go back to being a little bit more direct? I mean, so what do you think? Was this?
I don't know. I mean, it's horses for courses, isn't it? You change, you mold the tactics to whatever the opposition are. They probably knew that they were going to have more of the ball. That Cincinnati were going to be a bit nervy, opening their new stadium in a bad run of form, etc. So they're probably let's keep the ball. Let's try and wear them down. Look, would they do the same against Orlando or New England? Right now, it depends. Would they get as much as the ball? Would they be would they be on the defensive more against those kind of teams? Yeah, probably. But then I guess you adapt. Don't forget with the Atlanta game, they probably should have won that if they would have got that penalty in the last minute. So you just cater for it. But I think definitely, as we said last week, when you're playing against the teams that are struggling or near the bottom, and they know that they've got a stronger squad, you've got to go for it and have a go at them, and that's what they did.
So let's touch on the other Higuain, Federico, because I think he was important to the build-out, because with him at the 10, you have a player that's able to combine a little bit more, that's able to float into pockets of space, both higher and lower, where he can pick up the ball and help move it quickly. 1-2 touch passes. He also has the ability to hit in through balls in behind the defense, which we saw on a couple of occasions, including, again, leading up to Gonzalo Higuain's goal. Federico looks for the through ball for a streaking Lewis Morgan. Lewis Morgan, maybe it was a foul, maybe the ball was taken away cleanly. We didn't get a real good look there. But the ball falls back to Sami Guediri, and Sami Guediri then finds Federico Higuain, who had moved up into a higher position because his recognition of the open space and the empty space, as well as Gonzalo, they both see that the empty space had come in on the right flank because Morgan had made a diagonal run towards the left, and the left back went with him. FC Cincinnati's left back, Ronald Matarita, went with him. So the right flank for Inter Miami and FC Cincinnati's left flank was open. And Sami Guediri heads up play, smart pass, finds Federico, and Federico back heels it towards Gonzalo. And even that back heel pass from Federico, which I thought was not only effective but impressive, it sets up his brother's first goal from the run of play in MLS, like I mentioned before. Something we've talked about Gonzalo needing to do. And it's something that you don't get from Rodolfo Pizarro. So Phil Neville said after the game that Rodolfo Pizarro is an important player for this team, and maybe you got to come out of the lineup sometimes to go back in, and this will be the case for maybe a game or two. But do you start Federico Higuain on a more consistent basis? I imagine he starts this weekend against Chicago Fire, but do you start Federico on a more consistent basis, or given where he's at with his age, do you think that that's too much of a risk that he'll break down eventually?
We don't know. We don't see him train, so we don't know. As I mentioned, I spoke to someone who knows him really, really well last week, and he said, look, he's ready to start. He's got the fitness to do that. Sometimes you may only need 60 or 70 minutes out of him, depending on the game situation. But right now, I think he's a nailed on starter, just because of Pizarro's out of form. Has he ever been in form? Is another question. But I just think that he just does those easy things well, and I think he does have a nice kind of link up with the brother, and who knows, seeing his brother on the pitch may just inspire Gonzalo Higuain just that little bit more. It may give him one or two FIFA ranking points, just his confidence or whatever. Maybe that will be improved a bit. So I just think for the moment, I don't think he's going to change a winning team like that for the weekend, and I think Federico Higuain warrants his place to the side, don't you?
I think so. Again, I like what I see from him from a ideas standpoint. I like what I see from him from a technical standpoint. Again, he was able to drop into deeper spaces to help with the build out, and as well as go into more advanced positions and combine or look for players in behind. Just more of a natural number 10, which is something we've talked about on this pod since maybe even dating back to last year, about how Inter Miami lacked the true number 10 on the field. So I think he absolutely will start this weekend. I think he merits starting most of the games unless Rodolfo Pizarro really picks it up. Now, maybe Rodolfo Pizarro will be given an opportunity towards the end of this month and maybe the beginning of June, because he's set, or you would expect that he's bound to go with Mexico's national team for their competitions this summer. So maybe they'll give Federico a rest and give Rodolfo Pizarro another chance to impress. But I think Federico is, for me, the number one option at that number 10 spot right now. Unless Rodolfo Pizarro really picks it up, I don't know if he should be starting on a more permanent basis. And when I say he, I don't know if Rodolfo Pizarro should be starting on a more permanent basis again. I think he needs to perform and show that in order to win back that spot. I know he'll probably get opportunities in the near future, but he's got to deliver, because if he doesn't, then that just hinders the team's ability to attack and be as good from the build-out and in with the ball as they were this past weekend. Because again, I'll just say this one last time, Federico Higuain looks so comfortable in the attacking half, playing quickly and playing in tight spaces and trying to make things happen. Just looks like a true number 10. Now, quickly before we wrap up this segment, I want to ask you about Rodolfo Pizarro and the moment that the Fox camera crew, the broadcast team, caught at the end of this game. So Phil Neville brings in Rodolfo Pizarro around the 90th minute to help close out the match. He gets a few touches on the ball to try to kill time near the corner. He gets one opportunity in the 93rd minute when Julian Carranza plays him a ball into space right there inside the penalty area, a little bit off center, off to the left, and Pizarro takes a left-footed shot that FC Cincinnati goalkeeper Kenneth Vermeer makes a save on and pushes out for a corner kick. That would have iced the game had it gone in. It was literally the 93rd minute, so there was only one more minute left in stoppage time. But the broadcast crew, and kudos to them, they caught Phil Neville's reaction, and they focused on Phil Neville's reaction when looking at the replay. And Phil Neville looked like the Incredible Hulk. He looked like he went into rage mode, because he was practically almost foaming at the mouth with how angry he was at Rodolfo Pizarro not putting that ball into the back of the net. And for me, that's telling. For me, that's because the rest of his technical staff, they did the usual hands on heads, like disbelief. but Phil Neville was irate. It was like a slight temporary moment of rage, and his face, he just looked like an angry bulldog, like with his like bottom teeth showing. I was surprised that he reacted that way. Were you?
No, I mean, he's a manager. It's a very, very, tight game. It's going into the last second. They're 3-2 up. The pressure's on. He's desperate to see it out. The guy goes through, should have scored, didn't score. What's he supposed to do? Just stand there and just sort of smile or something? He's not. He's a human being. He's got emotion running through his veins. It was a dramatic ending, and he just peed off the fact that he missed. I don't think it's a slur on Pizarro. I don't think it's a slur on anyone. I'm sure if Higuain would have missed it, he would have done exactly the same. I mean, it's just everyone was probably feeling the same. Fans, people listening, watching, whatever you want. I mean, you're looking way too far into that. That's some sort of.
Oh, I knew. How did I know that? How did I know that you would go
There we are,
this
the old
way?
conspiracy theory.
It's not a conspiracy theory. It's not a conspiracy theory. If you look at his coaching staff, hold on. If you look at his coaching staff,
It was this. Just to put it in context, this was in the last 20 seconds of a very highly charged match with a very, very sort of roller coaster kind of ending, right? Okay, just to put you put yourself in Phil Neville's shoes, just for a second. Would you be emotional?
So I would assume I would be like the rest of most of his coaching staff was, because most of the members on that technical staff, from what you can see in the cameras, they have their hands on their heads or their hands over their faces, like in disbelief, which is by and large the way coaches react to saved shots. This was a saved shot. This was not a point blank miss that he skied into Rosie. This was a saved shot from Kenneth Vermeer, or Pizarro, that was saved by Kenneth Vermeer. I think, just my opinion, and I will put my name to it, Franco Panizo says this, I think Phil Neville's emotions betrayed him. And I think they showed that does not have very much goodwill right now towards Rodolfo Pizarro. I think Rodolfo Pizarro's in the doghouse. You could say I'm looking too deep into it, but I haven't seen Phil Neville react that way to any miss from Gonzalo Higuain, Federico Higuain. I haven't seen him react like that at all towards any miss. And I will ask you this, because I know you've watched soccer or football for a large part of your life. When's the last time you saw a coach get angry about a miss? You can see coaches get angry about missed markings or bad passes, but over a saved shot, I don't know, man. I don't remember the last time I've seen a coach foam at the mouth. He was snarling, like.
Yeah.
Like,
well, look, listen. We know that he hasn't been sort of best pleased with Pizarro's performances. They want to try and ship him out in the summer. He's not the flavour of the month right now. So maybe there is an element of that for sure. They're definitely going to try and move him on in the summer. I'm told Willian, from the Brazilian midfielder, who's at Arsenal, is going to leave Arsenal, is a target. He wants to come to MLS. He wants to come to Miami. It does add up. I retract my conspiracy accusation at you. I still wouldn't look too much into it, but you are right that managers don't tend to react that much when a shot is missed like that. But look, we know that Pizarro is not the flavour of the month right now.
Sure.
And that I guess that adds to it a bit. But it's been difficult for Pizarro. But if the problem is, who would want to buy him now? That is one. I know we touched on this before. We probably won't touch on it again in the future. Who's going to buy him? Is another MLS club going to look at Pizarro and think, oh yeah, we really want him? I mean, it's just not happening, is it?
Yeah, I think that's a problem. And if they want someone like Willian, they're going to have to get rid of the DP, because Willian will command a designated player salary, I imagine. Look, I just want to make this clear. I don't think Phil Neville not rating or having Rodolfo Pizarro in the doghouse is unwarranted. I agree that Rodolfo Pizarro has, by and large, been so far a miss of a signing. But that reaction surprised me, because again, it's not normal. It's not normally that you see a coach react that way. I even got a few text messages from some people with someone even saying it looked like, and it was in Spanish, but they said along the lines of like, "Wow, the devil went into Phil Neville for a second there," because he was fuming, and his face was just like there was this like almost bitter hatred in there. But look, I think Rodolfo Pizarro's days at Inter Miami, like you just mentioned, are numbered. I've said this going back to a few weeks ago, I wouldn't be surprised if he moves on in the summer or in the winter, although you're reporting that they are looking to move him.
100%.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll leave it there in terms of this past weekend. We'll move forward and look at the next weekend's game, this weekend's game against the Chicago Fire, after this.
Y hablé con el técnico y tuvimos una charla sobre esto importante, de que yo había dado una mala imagen en el último partido, pero que soy un ser humano, no soy un robot, que puedo entrar y jugar al fútbol y hacerlo bien después de lo que viví, pero que tenía que ayudarme al equipo y a mí mismo para salir de esa situación. Y la verdad que muy contento por los 2 goles de hoy. Obviamente son principalmente para ella y para mi familia, para mi hija, que son los sostenes de este momento, y mi hermano que hoy jugó y todo el equipo, los que entraron. La verdad que muy contento por el partido de hoy.
Okay, Steve, so looking ahead to this weekend's match, on Saturday, Inter Miami goes on the road again, and it will play the Chicago Fire, which are another very poor team in MLS right now. They tied their season opener, but they've lost every single game since then, including the last 3 via shutout. So Inter Miami, for me, has a very winnable game in front of it. What do you expect from this one?
Yeah, I mean, more of the same, isn't it? You know, like we've just been talking about. They're on the back foot, terrible run of form, yet to win a game. So, you know, the pressure's on them, and I think, you know, they'll look at the result of the weekend for Inter Miami, and they'll look at the lineups, and they'll think, no, you know, we don't want to be facing them right now. You know, coming off a decent win, also had a week's rest as well. So I think just more of the same. I think, you know, it's that they're going to be more nervous than Phil Neville's team. So I think, you know, again, just go try and get that goal early on, and then see what happens. They're not scoring a lot of goals with Chicago, and they're letting a lot in as well, aren't they? So they seem ripe for a defeat. Another one.
Another one. So I've heard that actually there's going to be a pretty good turnout from Inter Miami fans for this one. I heard that's been in the works. So there should be quite a good environment at Soldier Field. But in terms of the actual game, yeah, you know, Rafael Wiki has not been able to find how to push the right buttons with this team, or find the right players, or find the right combination of players, because the team has been pretty poor since he took over, and they've been struggling in a big way as of late. You know, they have their striker Beric, who can score, but it just hasn't worked. So for Inter Miami, this one is definitely a winnable game. I think anything less than a win would be a bit disappointing for the team, given how poor Chicago is. Now, obviously, you're going on the road, then that's always a tall order in MLS. But I think this one is one that they should get 3 points from. That would help maybe mitigate the 3 points that they dropped at home against CF Montreal. Another win on the road, because Inter Miami hasn't won yet at home this year. So probably need the 3 points here. The season's long, but given the context of everything, I think Inter Miami needs to win. Steve, what would be the key to the game here for you? And I wouldn't be surprised if you say score another early goal here.
Got to win the game, yeah. I think what they will look back on from Sunday is just the fact how once they were 2-0 up and sort of coasting, they had that sort of shaky, 20-minute period when, you know, they kind of started to regress a bit into the sort of Inter Miami that makes you want to watch from behind the sofa. And they kind of looked like they were going to concede, and then thankfully they got out of jail, you know, right in the last second. So I think they just need to potentially maybe shut up shop a bit more. Don't go for that third goal. Maybe just you know lock everything up and just invite them onto you, and then hit them on the counter, because once they let that first goal in on Sunday, they kind of started to look a bit vulnerable.
Did that defensive performance in the second half concern you against FC Cincinnati? I know we already touched on that game, but looking ahead, does that defense concern you a bit now? Because those 2 goals for FC Cincinnati came practically from out of nothing. It's not like FC Cincinnati was building up and creating things that John McCarthy had to save in that second half. The first one comes off a long ball that beats Leandro Gonzalez Pires. and then the second one is off of a corner kick. So does that concern you a bit, or do you think it's just circumstance of one game?
I mean, they shut off a bit. Maybe fitness and concentration, comes into it. I thought Shawcross Gonzalez Perez had decent enough games. I think, just that lack of concentration. That's it. It's a cliche. It only takes a second to score a goal, and they just needed to shut up shop a bit more rather than just chase the third goal. I think once they got the first one, then the tables are turned, isn't it? It's the home team that are coming at you, and you're trying to hang on. So the dynamic changes completely. So if they can just stand firm and just keep compact and not trying to concede as the time goes on, then I think once they get into the last 10 minutes or so, then they can kind of breathe a bit easier. But if they start conceding around 55, 60 minutes, then it's still there's everything to play for.
For me, it's put the game on your terms. Dictate the tempo like you did in that first half against FC Cincinnati. Try to build out and do more of the same. Do more of the same, and this game should be yours, especially if you can get your DPs like Blaise Matuidi and like Gonzalo Higuain to influence the proceedings. So put the game on your terms, put it on your stamp. You'll be on the road, but again, playing a team that's not in the best shape right now, in the best way, I think it's a very winnable game. Steve, any lineup changes you would make? I know you said earlier you wouldn't change the team, but anything you would maybe switch or alter?
Really, no. I'm sort of loath to change a winning formation. Really, I think if everybody is fit, we're not going to speak to Phil Neville, I don't think, until Thursday, so we won't know the status of Figal or Robbie Robinson or those sort of guys. But
sure.
They'll come in off the bench. I think all being well, providing everyone is fit and healthy, I think he'll go with the same team.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes with the same team. I think if there is maybe one change to make, I think maybe it would be Sammy Guederi coming out of the lineup and maybe Jovan Jones going in. I liked what I've seen from Jovan Jones in the last two games. He was pretty good sub off the bench against CF Montreal as a left winger, and then this one he came in and played left back and looked pretty decent. So wouldn't be surprised if that's the switch he makes, but other than that, I don't really see any other changes really being made to the team. Unless, like you said, someone like maybe Calvin Leerdam comes back into the mix and is healthy again, or Robbie Robinson or Nicolas Figal. But that's the only real scenario where I could see that changing. Steve, give me a prediction for this weekend.
I always conceding, unfortunately, but I think they'll score and I think they'll win 3-1.
3-1. Okay, that was my prediction last week and it ended up being 3-2, so I was close. This time I'm going to say Inter Miami wins 4-0.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, we're only recording early, but you've been drinking.
Yeah, I'm still hungover from my birthday.
Kool-Aid.
I'm still hungover from my boat festivities on Saturday in Miami. No, look, I think Inter Miami has gotten a lot of confidence from this one. I think this last game, I think Chicago Fire's in a really poor run of form. They're at home, sure, but I think Inter Miami individually is better, and I think collectively coming off this win will be better. I think with Federico Higuain in there, I think it'll just continue to work a little bit better. Defense, I do have some slight concerns about the goals they're lighting up because now they're not looking as solid as of late as they did maybe at the start of the season. I know that they're missing a few pieces here and there, but either way, I still think Inter Miami will have a big win this weekend. But that does it for this segment. We'll come back for the Q&A session after this. Guys, it's Q&A time, and El Primo is back in the house. He left the house on Friday in our bonus pod, but he's back in here, so we'll get to our Q&A session, starting with a question that we got last week for you, Primo. It was from Luis, one of our regular listeners, and he says, question for El Primo, what's your favorite local beer? I said last Friday we would come back to it and have you answer it, so here we go.
Favorite local beer, Barrel Monk is quite nice. I do like that. And there's another one. I always like going down to Winwood and going to the breweries down there, but it's obviously that has stopped recently. But I look forward to getting back down there. I actually had some very nice alcoholic kombucha as well. At one place, I say concrete. Is it Concrete Brewery? Is that right? Is anyone
I'm not so I'm not a big beer connoisseur. Like I can have a beer, but I'm not a big beer person. You know, I got made fun of quite a bit when I first moved up to New York because everyone was drinking their IPAs and their fancy beers, and I was just kind of very stock, like Stella or whatever I was drinking at that
Barrel
time.
Monk, man. Barrel Monk, that's a good one.
La Rubia's not bad. La Rubia, I don't mind La Rubia. I believe it's a Winwood beer. I think I have one in the fridge, but it's not bad. It's not bad. Now we'll switch unless you want to keep talking about beers because I said last week I know Steve would like to dive into this question.
Yes, we'll talk about beers probably having a beer with everyone else when we can do. How about that? I think that's a better idea.
I think we should, and we haven't talked about this really, but I think we should next week before the game against DC United that we'll have a full house or we'll be able to have a full house. I think we should go mingle with the fans a good bit and maybe just have one beer before the game. So that way we can at least focus and have our analysis.
If any of my bosses are listening to this, I will not agree to that at all. I'm professional. I would never do anything like that. Thank you. I'm just putting it out there.
I mean, it's not like your analysis is spot on anyway. So Steve's probably punching, throwing a dart at the picture he has of me on his punching bag. Okay, next question. Let's switch to the soccer questions. This one comes from Gabe P. What would be the easiest way to get rid of our DPs? Is there even a way to get rid of two players that are older than 33 years old? You can't even sell them. Puts with an exclamation point. Pizarro has market in Mexico, but I don't know if he would like to go back. What's happening with Pellegrini? Why doesn't he play for Fort Lauderdale's team? So, Steve, there's a lot in there. Let's begin with the bigger veteran DPs like Gonzalo Higuain and Rodolfo Pizarro and Blaise Matuidi. Is there a way to get them off the books if Inter Miami wants to? I imagine they're not all going to go, but if someone like Pizarro, like you mentioned, is on the transfer wire, where how does Inter Miami get it done?
Yeah, this is it. They're working their contacts. The agents are working now. I'm sure the feelers would have been put out in terms of if they can try and offload Pizarro, somewhere just to get him off the wage bill, and then they can make moves for Willian or whoever they want to do. It's difficult in the transfer markets. The windows are still shut in Europe because the league is still going on, but they'll reopen next week. And then this is where the agents come into play. We've already seen the first transfer saga with Harry Kane wanting to leave Tottenham Hotspur, but this for us, it's certainly in MLS, this is going to be an interesting one to see how they try and maneuver a way to free Pizarro up, that spot up, and bring someone else in, because that's what we're hearing. That's exactly what they want to do. What clubs would be looking at Pizarro and think we need him? Someone will. It's just whether or not also, they can make the move happen, but also to try and recoup the money that they outlaid for him. I can't remember off the top of my head how much they paid for him, but they'll be doing well to get that money back, really, and that's what the owners want to do. With the lack of revenue coming in from fans, money is at a premium. They want to try and recoup every penny they can, and if they're not going to just get rid of him just for the sake of it, they want to get their money back. But it's difficult because I think as an asset, he's probably devalued since he's in the last sort of 18 months, really, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, so I'll repeat that. I don't think Gonzalo Higuain and Blaise Matuidi are going anywhere this season. No. But Pizarro, I could see him moving on. Now, if ownership, which I imagine is the case, wants to recover some of its investment, I don't think you're going to get very much back on Rodolfo Pizarro. If you're looking for something close to what you paid for him, it's probably not happening. His form has dipped for club and country. He's been getting criticized locally as well as nationally down in Mexico. So it's just not, his stock is as low as it's probably been in some time. So I cannot imagine that Inter Miami is going to get a whole lot. Now, if the owners want to try to recover some of or more of that, well, then it's going to take time. He's going to have to raise his performance, and that could ultimately hinder the team, because that would have to force, or that would have to make Chris Henderson and Phil Neville have to wait until someone comes with a very good deal. Whereas if maybe they could sell him for less sooner, they could bring in a player like Willian. But Obviously, they have to get approval from the ownership there. So we'll see how that plays out. As for why Pellegrini's not playing for Fort Lauderdale, we touched on this a few weeks ago, I believe, in the Q&A session, and we don't have this as information, but I think it's pretty safe to assume that Matias Pellegrini will not play for Fort Lauderdale CF because it can probably hurt his stock more than help his stock. He could get injured. He could have not great games with players that are not of a higher quality, and then people will criticize him more for not dominating the USL League. So don't think he's going to be playing for them. He hasn't yet, and I doubt he will. There have been reports of him heading back to Estudiantes in Argentina on loan as early as July, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's what's going on, and it's just a waiting game right now in terms of that. Inter Miami did not comment when I reached out to them about that report. Next question comes from Alante Herons, and it says, what's your favorite part about the new Miami Freedom Park renderings? Realistic opening date, keep up the solid work. Primo?
I'll be honest with you, I haven't actually seen the renderings, but it all just leaves me a little bit cold just because it all looks impressive, and we've been here for many, many years now in terms of looking at what they're trying to do. I had a conversation the other week about when they were going to do it in the Port of Miami, which would have been awesome. The pictures there look great. I'm just taking everything with a pinch of salt just because I know how much work they've got to do just to even get to that first building block in the ground. They're absolutely miles away from anything like that, and I just think it's all got taken a bit of a back burner now because of the pandemic, but also because of the uncertain economic climate right now. I don't think people are going to throw money at something like this, considering the year or the 14 months that people have had. So, plus, I just think that the setup they've got right now is fine. I think it's great. The great training center. I like the stadium, like the setup there. It's all good. And if they're going to do that eventually, then fine. But I wouldn't be upset at all or surprised if they stayed where they are now definitely for at least 4, 5, 6 years maybe. I think moving to Melreese is a good money making scheme, but that's what it is. They want to make money. They want to try and make as much money as possible by everything else, by having the hotels and the shops and the retail and the business parks, and using it as a gateway to Central and South America and creating this new Silicon Valley for South Florida. And it's a real estate deal with a soccer stadium in it. I wouldn't worry too much about that. I think you've got a great setup now. We've been to grounds and stadiums all over the world, all over Europe. I think they've got a great setup here. And I think you also can't knock the fact that the training center is on that same site as well. So yeah, it looks good, but don't get too excited just yet.
You're just saying that as a Parkland resident because you like how close it is to you. And look, I'm also in Broward County, so the drive would be further to have to go to games.
It's got nothing to do about my drive. It's got nothing to do with that. I would have liked to look. Imagine now if they were in Wynwood or in Overtown where they had that site then. Again, that would have been awesome. And you were talking about beers. You could go to Wynwood, have a few beers. Though the Wood Tavern's not there anymore, but have a few beers and rock up to the stadium. They're not going to make money out of that stadium because it's just going to be a stadium, just like the stadium in Lockhart. It's just the stadium. Whereas in Melreese, it's going to be this whole thing of like we've just mentioned. So I just worry about the pitch on the team and the team on the pitch. Sorry, and let's see what happens in the future. But like I said, don't hold your breath.
Yeah, I mean, look, to answer the question, I like the renderings. Renderings are always cool to see. They're always very artsy, and they always glow a little bit. Like that first picture that they have now with the stadium, and it's the sun setting in the background, so there's like this pink or orange yellow shade going on, and the lights are lit in the stadium, and the buildings there are lit up as well. It all looks nice, but they're renderings, right? And renderings tend to look a little bit fancier or nicer or a little bit more glammed up than what is actually seen when the stadium comes to fruition. We did hear from Jorge Mas back in February that something would get close to being done in 45 to 60 days. That got pushed back once we spoke to him right before the start of the season. He again reiterated that same line, and we still have not heard anything of note on that front. So, like Steve said, if you're keeping your fingers crossed, you might need to keep your toes crossed as well, because it might take a little bit more time for that deal to get finalized and for construction to begin. And Steve, I'm impressed that your knowledge of the Wynwood beer watering holes because
I used to live in Midtown Miami, so Wynwood was just a mile walk away. So yeah, and I've been to Overtown. I've been all to that area, and it's all spreading out, and it's it's really cool. So much cool stuff happening there, and the stadium would have been awesome. It's just yeah, it didn't happen. They still own the land as well. They still own that land. They still have a $9 million piece of land in Overtown. Maybe they can open a brewery. The Neville Brewery.
Or maybe they can sell that if they plan not to use it and go get Willian because that could help pay for it. But yeah, I am impressed that you knew that Wood Tavern had closed. I loved Wood Tavern. Had spent a lot of nights in my 20s there. A lot of good times, a lot of good memories. Next question, because we've rambled on this one. Comes from Jorge Medina. Should Pizarro stay starting benched against the Fire? Do we keep the same lineup as we did against Cincy? If not, what do we change? So I think we touched on this. You said you keep the lineup the same. I would say yes, unless Joevin Jones is fit enough to start. If Joevin Jones is fit enough to start, put him at the left back spot instead of Sammy Guediri. But I think Pizarro stays benched. I think you keep the rest of the team the same. I
think so. Just unless no one can't. Yeah, people get injured in the week or whatever. I just think you never change a winning team.
So the next question comes from Daniel Mejia. What other player is likely to come up from Fort Lauderdale CF to the main team like Ascona? I would say Harvey Neville. I think that's just a clear-cut, very easy answer there. Harvey Neville, who also is a right back, I think he would naturally be it because his father's the head coach and because he plays that position. I think Harvey Neville would probably be the player from Fort Lauderdale CF that's most likely to come up, be it by the end of this year or by next year.
And Mitch Curry from Sunderland, didn't he score? He scored the other night. If they won 5-0, didn't they? He looked quite lively. So it's just good. I think they have. I mean, all the teams have got this, obviously, but just to have that feeder team as well there, where they can just mix and match. I think that's a good thing.
Next question comes from and I'm gonna butcher this pronunciation. Jedrzej Witt. Let me know on Twitter how to pronounce that so I get that right going forward. Because I'm usually good with pronunciations, but I might have just completely butchered that. But he asks, what do you think of the quality of Ryan Shawcross? Personally, I've been expecting a little bit more from him. Steve, you can start here.
I think for someone that's not barely played for 2 years, I think he's done okay, hasn't he? I think. I mean, without being like Alisson from the Liverpool keeper and scoring a goal, I don't know what else. I mean, I think he's done okay. Yeah, I mean, he hasn't been fit, so he's looked relatively solid. He had didn't have his best game against Montreal, did he? But then no one did. So I think on the whole, I think they'll be pretty pleased with him.
I think I've seen good and bad moments. I would say slightly more good than bad. I've also seen someone that looks like with more time, he'll be a real leader on this group. I think those qualities that made him captain at Stoke City for so long, I think you've caught glimpses of it in terms of him leading guys in different moments on the field. There's been different moments in different games where you see him instructing and pushing people into positions or really trying to lead and guide them. So I have liked what I've seen more than I've disliked what I've seen, and I think he will probably get better as he gets more into a rhythm, more 90 minutes fit, and gets more of those 90-minute games under his belt. Next question comes from Twitter. Doesn't MLS have an automatic suspension on 5th yellow card accumulation? I see Gregori and LGP are both sitting on 4 yellow cards. Both are the only outfield players to play every single minute this season. Who do you think will be the first to the 5th? Hopefully not both in the same game. Well, now, Twitter, you have now jinxed both of them, so if they both get a yellow card this weekend, it's all your fault. Just kidding. I would say... man, that's a tough question because they're both very physical. They both have a habit of drawing fouls. Gregori, just because he's involved there on the ball a little bit more. I think they're both safe bets to get that 5th yellow card sooner rather than later. But I would say Gregori slightly, although LGP also has a tendency to pick up yellows for physical and rough play. Yeah,
Matuidi as well. He sometimes looks like a booking waiting to happen, doesn't he?
But which one do you think, Gregori or LGP? Who do you think gets the 5th yellow card first?
I think Gonzalo Pires, just because he's in the thick of it quite a lot, puts himself about. He's quite aggressive kind of player, likes the physical sort of element of it. So I'd go for him, unfortunately.
Okay. I mean, look, their jobs, part of their functions are to break up plays. So yellow cards are a natural part of the game for them. So it's not necessarily a huge slight. I think obviously you don't want them racking up yellow cards, especially this early in the season, but it is part of their duties there on the field as defensive-minded players. Next question comes from Eric. Hello. Why is Neville only playing Jones half of the games and not starting him? He seems fully fit to me. Same goes for Leerdam. Enough with tinkering around with the fullback position and playing guys out of place. Personally, I've seen enough of Ulloa. Have you heard anything on Figal? So I'll start here, Steve. And Leerdam is dealing with a knock. That's why he didn't dress over the weekend. That's why Ulloa has been playing as the right back. As for Jones, I can't remember when exactly Phil Neville said it, but I think it was last week, and he said that Jones is still working his way up to full fitness. Obviously, he arrived late into preseason camp, so Jones is still not there yet. That's why when he was starting at the beginning of the year, he was coming out either at halftime or shortly after halftime, and now he's coming off the bench more. So I think once he does get closer to 90 minutes fit, or once he gets there, then I think we'll see him start a little bit more often. So, but that's just what I think. I don't know how you're feeling about it, Steve.
I think he's just mixing and matching, isn't he? Because again, the players weren't fit. Joey Jones looked okay, isn't he? Not amazing, but okay. But he has got different. He's got different options, and he's just trying to manage the squad. Considering the lack of game time that they had early on.
Okay, and then the last question for this week's pod comes from Elder Bar. What is Phil's actual tactic or game plan? Seems like every game is improvised. Does Phil see the immense amount of turnovers from Matuidi? Steve, I fully expect you to defend Phil Neville here because you tend to defend the English. But
but you would have to adapt. That's what a manager does. He adapts. It's not a case of right, we're going to play this way via to hell with whatever else happens. Look, I was thinking about this before as well. Go back 12 months. They were in 3 points from 6 or something like that. You can't forget this was a team in transition. It was a new team, a struggling team, and you guys come in and look. They haven't set the world alight, but they've done okay, pretty much. And like I said before, and I'm repeating ourselves. If you would have said after 6 games you would have had eight points already, I think people would have taken that just about. Maybe one more win. I think the Montreal game was a disappointment, but he said that was a reality check and blah blah and you're part of the learning curve and all that kind of stuff. I think they're doing okay. I mean, we're not talking about Brazil or Real Madrid here. This is a struggling team that needed a change. They've had to change, and I think we're seeing more shoots of recovery and signs of life than we did for a long time last season. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they progressed, even though they were starting from a pretty low bar.
They have progressed. Yes, absolutely. I don't think anyone could argue otherwise, though I do think that they're trying to make do with the pieces that they have that they do not want, because again, Phil Neville in preseason said he wanted a possession and high pressing team. He's had to adapt to the players he has. He's realized, I think, that these players are not going to be able to play that way exactly, so he's gone in a little more of a direct manner. Again, there was a little bit more build-out in this one. It was still more of a direct build-out, though, playing through lines quickly. Not really patient build-up, side-to-side passing, not much of that. But I think he's just making do with what he has until they can bring in more pieces that is to their liking or that are to their liking and that fit the player profiles they want. Because, again, like you can say all these things as well, that there's things that have gone against them in preseason and whatnot, but they've said, look, they want to be a top team in the Eastern Conference. They want to be fighting and contending for titles. So that's what we have to judge them on. That's what they're judging themselves on. So publicly, we can't say, all right, well, they've had some issues here and there. Sure, we can highlight that, but that's still not enough for a team that outwardly says how good they want to be. So, hopefully we'll see them improve from the run of play as the year goes on. But again, I think it's going to take some time. I do agree that Matuidi has, at times, plenty of turnovers, and defensively he's a bit of a liability. But again, it's about pieces being here that maybe they don't want that they don't rate, but that you just can't get rid of just like that. There are contracts in MLS, and with the transfer windows being how they are, it's complex, and it's not as easy. It's not as easy as just selling them or getting rid of them all in one window.
And there's also decade-long investigations into Blaise Matuidi's financial irregularities. I think by the end of sort of 2050, we should know. We should know. Don said so. That's good.
Don Garber did give an update in Cincinnati and saying that interviews are still being conducted. So I don't know when we'll hear anything, but it might be a few more weeks, if not months. Steve, that does it for the Q&A session. Give us our final thoughts, your final thoughts. I'll give mine, and we'll wrap up the show.
Yeah, look, I think I'm not telling people to suck eggs, but I think people should be
relatively... mean? What does suck eggs mean?
Doing something which you know that you don't need to be told what to do. I think people should be pleased with how things are going. I don't think it's perfect. I think they still have to make moves. Remember, Kieran Gibbs is going to come in the summer. New goalkeeper's going to come as well. Now we're hearing about Willian, all that kind of stuff. Just writing a story about that right now. He definitely wants to come. That would change the dynamic. So I think they're working with what they've got. I think after 6 games, it's been not brilliant, but definitely not as bad as those low points at last year. I think if they can get a win as well on Sunday, I think that sets them up, really, really well. And I think they'll be delighted with that. But I think straightforward, and we'll have to wait and see. But I think this is a good matchup for them on Sunday, and I'm expecting a win.
My final thought is Gonzalo Higuain stepped up and delivered like a DP does. And he made the team of the week. He was named the MLS Player of the Week. He's the first Inter Miami player to win that award. So need more of that from him. Obviously, he is maybe still struggling emotionally with the loss of his mother. That's understandable. But you need to get those type of performances out of him for Inter Miami to be the type of team that it wants to be, because you need goals from your striker. You need that type of performance from him. So let's see if he continues to make good on his promise to Phil Neville and scores another 2 this weekend. I said 4-0 prediction, so I could definitely see him scoring 2 on Saturday. But that does it for this week's show. We had news, we had debates, we had arguments. Very, very interesting show today. Make sure you give us a review on Apple Podcasts if you haven't done so already, and give us a follow on all our social media channels, and give us some feedback. Let us know what you think about the show, what you would like to see or hear more of, what you would like to hear less of. I said this without you on the show, Steve, so I'm going to say it again. If you want to hear less of Steve Brenner talk about Manchester United's 1992 team, let us know as well, because I know he references it quite a bit. No,
there's actually a wonderful documentary about it. If you want to watch it. We should do like a viewing party or something. We'll be watching it. Phil Neville come down, David Beckham. They're all. It's a great story, and I bet you may mock, but I bet a lot of people don't know the sort of depth of it. So we should get into it.
I'm not mocking. I'm only teasing. Steve.
Great story.
Okay, well, maybe we can't do that. I do think we should get to the stadium early next week. Let's plan that out. Let's figure that out, and then we'll let the listeners know maybe early next week what we're going to do, because I think we should have a little bit more outreach, especially before that game where that's going to have so many more fans in it, or at least we expect it to. But that does it for this week's show. For Steve and Primo Brenner, I am Franco Panizo. Enjoy the game this weekend, guys, and we'll talk to you guys again